for disgruntled Brooklyn Nets superstar Kevin Durant. SNNY's Ian Bagley, former colleague, reported that the 76ers and KD have mutual interests. And from what I've been told, the Sixers did have conversations with the Nets a few weeks ago. Now, that's not surprising the Sixers would have those initial conversations. Every team in the league had those conversations. What is notable is the idea that Durant has interest in Philadelphia and a reunion with James Harden. The former teammates looked pretty friendly this past weekend in London. We saw them backstage at a Travis Scott concert. And from what I'm told, the two former teammates are back on good terms now, despite Harden forcing his way out of Brooklyn just 6 months ago. If anything, this was Harden's way of smoothing things over. So, Matt, how surprising would a reunion be?
Is Travis Scott going to come to Philly with KD?
I was going to say, Travis Scott was fired up there.
He had the most energy on there.
I'd like to have that much energy sometime in my life.
It would be interesting. You know what I mean? We don't really know what happened, why James, we hear things, but why James left and wanted to go to Philly. But to me, if I'm Kevin Durant, obviously this Brooklyn thing is getting worse by the day, by the hour. But if I'm him, I want to go play wherever I know my other stars are going to want to play every single night, that they're physically able to play and that they want to play every single night. If I'm Kevin Durant, that's where I'd want to go. And if you think about it, if they can make that happen, Harden and beating KD, it's hard-pressed to name another big three better than that in the NBA. So it'll be interesting to see if it happens. Probably Maxey would have to leave in a situation like that, who everyone in the whole league is really high on, but had a chance to get Kevin Durant, and I'm sure that they're in a win-now situation with Embiid. I think it'd be a great move.
You know what's fun? I can think of another group of three that might be as good. It would be Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, but we saw that.
No.
So then it could be Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons.
Didn't get
which
a chance.
He still has.
Didn't get a chance.
I mean, when you do the history of it, it's a great big three. But then Joel Embiid, I'm with you. I think that tips the scale. Now, Durant may like the idea of playing in Philly, but I like the idea of being taller. I mean, it's harder to make that happen.
It's about as likely to happen.
Right?
Yeah.
Except if I sing that song 20 times with Skilo. Bobby, can you fire the trade machine? Like, how would this actually work?
We have the trade machine today, right?
Oh.
Talk about it.
Little mid-August trade machine.
So when you look at, certainly with Philadelphia and certainly Brooklyn here, it's going to be a challenge, right? Certainly we're talking about Kevin Durant here when we look at it from Brooklyn's perspective. But when you're looking at it from Philadelphia, basically the only player from the salary standpoint is a player like Tobias Harris. So when you look at Harris and certainly players like, as Matt said, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, you're limited as far as what you're going to be able to trade out. You're not going to trade out, certainly James Harden can't be traded until December. You're not going to trade Joel Embiid here. Remember, they've already traded Brooklyn 2 first-round picks. 2023 and 2027. They owe Oklahoma City a first in 2025. So when you look at it, only the first that they can trade out is 2029. And if you're the Nets' perspective, you have their picks already. So why are you going to make this team a lot better? So when maybe that pick turns into the early 20s, now it's going to be the 28th or 29th pick in the draft. So the pieces are there, certainly when you look at Harris and Maxey and Thybulle for Durant. But from a draft pick perspective, it doesn't make sense. If you're going to trade Kevin Durant to a team in your conference, you want Jaylen Brown back, right? That's the guy that you want back in a deal, and you want draft picks. This, for me, doesn't make sense at all.
Now, and that's the thing. Like, for as much as Kevin Durant might want to do something, at the end of the day, he signed a 4-year extension 1 year ago that started 2 weeks ago, right? That's the problem that Kevin Durant has. Like, when you just look at this right now, it's about what can the Nets get, not what does Kevin Durant want. And obviously, that looked like a great time in London. I'm sure he loved hanging out with James. And I'll remind Kevin that back in December, when Kevin Durant and James Harden were playing together, the Brooklyn Nets had the best record in the Eastern Conference. They looked like a championship caliber team. And then what happened? He decided he wanted Kyrie Irving back on the court. Everything went to hell. And then we saw what happened with James Harden a couple months later. So maybe Kevin Durant should have had this thought 6-8 months ago. Maybe things would have went differently. But this Philly idea, it's just not feasible.
So generally speaking, when you lay all that out and you say, unlikely, it's going to be hard for it to happen. I'm
saying there's no chance.
What is the hypothetical trio of Durant, Harden, and Embiid? Would that be the best in the NBA?
Oh, I would think
Hypothetically?
so.
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
But my
I think we can take out the hypothetically part. It would be the best year in the NBA.
Right.
It's also just not going to happen.
But my whole question is, I mean, there's been so much back and forth on what players want, what management want, where the owner is standing. When it's all said and done, it looks like those guys are all going to be in Brooklyn. I want to know how the hell they're going to make all that work.
They're going to have to try. They don't have much of a choice.
One big intervention. That's what it's going to have.
Well, as we saw yesterday, Kyrie Irving is about peace, love, and acceptance. So just have a meeting, just have it all come together, kumbaya, and make it work.
As long as he adds playing to that, I'm good.
I mean, look, on some level, though, we get to the point where does a contract mean anything? And you can't just change teams like it's an AAU ball, like you're changing high schools. And if you sign a contract and you don't give yourself leverage with a player option or with other ways of shortening the deal, you have to honor the contract or you don't get paid. And we're right back in that place with Brooklyn where they were before. And I don't know how we end up here in another month, because there's another month before they have to actually step on the court together. But it's going to take some doing. Yesterday, from what I was told, there was that conversation with Joe Tsai and Kevin Durant in London. It was about a lot of things. It was about Steve Nash. It was about Sean Marks. It was about everything that he had grievances about. But also, it was the seminal discussion was Kevin Durant has 4 years left on this deal. He wants to win a championship. He's 34 years old. He's going to be 34 years old. Where's the best place for him to win a championship? Right now, the Brooklyn Nets still look pretty good.
Say, call me crazy, but a dedicated and Kyrie Irving who wants to prove himself again, because obviously he'll be up next summer. And then I think people forget how good Ben. You can say
Ben Simmons is really good.
Ben Simmons is a really good and a pass-first guy that wants to play defense. Like if I'm Kevin Durant and Kyrie, I'm like, all he wants to do is pass him the ball. Then he's going to lock up on the other end. Like I want to see what that's like. Plus a healthy Joe Harris. You saw they added O'Neal. I want to see what this Nets team can do because we haven't really seen it full force yet.
There's also a question of what the Sixers team can do. Because they added James Harden midway through their, actually three quarters through the year. How good is this team when they have a full year to play together and Anthony Melton and some of the other moves they've made around the fringes?
Well, I mean, we talked about it yesterday. I had them as a team that can certainly be talked about as a conference finalist here. When you added PJ Tucker and Daniel House, you get a full year of Tyrese Maxey, another year of development here. As I said, James Harden, I see as a top 3 MVP candidate.
He's saying it again.
Oh, man, those social media blew up yesterday.
How are your mentions?
Oh, I don't read them. My wife does that. But I see this team, even if, certainly if they ever did do a Durant trade, this team I think could be one of these teams that are going to be standing when we're all said and done here.
Well, look, Tim was covering the Sixers in the finals, in the playoffs last year.
Yep.
And I thought Tobias Harris played some of his best basketball in those playoffs.
He had the best 2 months of his career, I thought, for the final month of the regular season, that month in the playoffs. He did everything they needed him to do, from filling in all the gaps, playing defense, hitting spot-up shots. He looked like he finally got comfortable being in Philadelphia and around these guys. And I think, to me, going forward, I think this team's got a chance to be really good. P.J. Tucker is a guy that fills all the holes they needed. You mentioned Anthony Melton. He gives them athleticism and defense on the perimeter. That's all the stuff that they needed. We know when Daryl Morey traded for James Harden last season, you knew this was going to be a work in progress. They were going to go into the summer and put this team together, add some pieces around him. They've done that. Now we'll see if James Harden can come back after a summer where he's been really dedicated to working out, getting his body back in shape. Can he be the guy that he was at the beginning of his tenure in Brooklyn when he looked like a top 3 MVP guy, as opposed to the guy that it's been since then, which is a top 15 to 30 guy? If he's the latter, they're going to be a decent team. If he's the former, they got a chance to be a championship.
Well, there's 2 guys in particular, since we're talking about these 2 teams, that I really want to see play this year. And it's one, it's a rededicated Harden, like you just mentioned, and then a Kyrie Irving. As basketball players, you never want to have the outside noise be louder than the noise you're making on the court. And I think both these guys realized last year the outside noise was a little bit louder than what they did on the court. Both these guys have recommitted themselves to proving that, hey, I still am a so-and-so in this league. Both very talented players still. So I'm interested to see where both of these guys are at, because I think a dedicated Harden and in shape Harden